Hi, this is Ken LeBlanc from the University of Massachusetts Donahue Institute. I'm here with Mike Hanahan, director of the UMass Civic Initiative, and Danish Aziz, who is an alumni, a 2019 alumni of our Susi Pakistan Comparative Public Policy Program. Mike, can you start, please?
Thank you guys for being here. Dinesh, what do you we'll get into talking about your business, which I'm excited to hear about. But what, just out of curiosity, what are a couple of things that you remember from your 2019 trip?
Well, the first thing, and this is one of the things that I will always remember, it is when our, the pre-departure orientation started. It was Marcia, and she said this one line that there are no problems, there are only challenges. And that one line it's always very close to me. And what I remember from my program, it is, having to deal with a lot of different people and a lot of different leaders, right? For instance, like you have this concentrated group of people who are all leaders, right? To navigate between those people, like it is very overwhelming and it is very challenging, but it is fun and you get to learn a lot. So that is something I really miss and I really learned from that program back in 2019.
So tell us, when you got back to Pakistan, was there any challenges when you got home?
Yes, the biggest challenge was going back to my university and starting over again, because I had to, cut down on 5 of my subjects and then having to take those again. Like that was a biggest challenge. And then 6 weeks is not a lot of time. It is sort of like a honeymoon period, but still, you start to get used to a different kind of environment, right? And coming back and then not having that kind of, I would say, freedom or exposure anymore, that is a little bit challenging, but I'm quite adjustable. So, it took me a while to get back.
And just for the purpose of our listeners, where are you from in Pakistan? Where do you go to school?
I am from the capital city, Islamabad, and I went to the engineering institute called CASE. So I did my electrical engineering from there.
You got home, I'm sure that you had, your family and friends. Once you got over your jet lag, they probably wanted to talk to you about your experience and ask you questions. What kind of questions did you get?
The first thing, they did not wait for my jet lag to get over. As soon as I was in the car, they were like, okay, so what happened? And where did you go? How were the people? Right? And what was it like in the university? And how were you treated there? How did you treat them? Right? Like all sort of just questions like right and left. And when I got to university, my teachers kept asking, okay, what was the teaching methodology there? How were students interacting with the teachers? And these are some of the questions like I had to tackle.
You answer that question. What was the teaching methodology there?
I was telling my teachers that it was more inclusive, like, it was more of a two-way communication. It wasn't like just one person talking and a lot of students just listening. And it was more like, having that interaction with teacher and student, right? The two-way communication, that is something like there's a huge difference between there and here.
I had a case study yesterday, and I think we had a 23-way communication.
Wow, 23.
Sure worked out so well. So you graduated.
Yes.
And then are you doing your first job now, or did you have a job between?
I am in my second job now. Yes.
What was your first job?
Well, my first job was more similar to this one as well. It was entrepreneurship / product design / engineering stuff / selling the technology / doing the marketing. So it was, like the whole experience from end to end. I was building the technology, I was selling the technology, I was marketing it, and like the whole stuff, right, end to end.
Tell us a little bit about, I thought I'd go in like two directions with these questions, and depending on your answer, I might ask something else, but sort of a general overview of the product that you make, and then sort of talk about your work life. So why don't we start with just an overview of the company and the product that they make.
So the company was, the company had an idea of building smart homes, right? So their product it was more like Alexa, right? But it was made in Pakistan, right? So it did not have like all the features of Alexa, but some of the features, like you could control your lights, you can control your fans, your air conditioning. Then you would have third-party apps built on that platform. So you have this, just one hub which is going to connect your entire home, and it is going to run your home for you, right? So this included a lot of variables, right? So you would want to make something that people would really want, like people would put up on the wall, and and then it has to be very, very price competitive. And since it is a very new technology in Pakistan, and then you have to figure out a way to sell it to the people, to tell them that this will actually help them. It will not just help them in cutting down their electricity cord. It is going to assist them in just having to have that freedom of thought, right? Of not worrying about your water motor, or not worrying about the lights being left turned on when you left the home, and like little things like these. But the technology adaptation in Pakistan is like quite different from then in US, right? So the idea was sort of like like to get to people a technology that is meaningful in a way that it changes their life. So my portion was this: to build the product design, get it fabricated, and then create the whole storyline, how to sell it to the people, right? And how to market it. So that is, I think, as a brief.
That's interesting because those roles are often in a company separated.
Yeah. Yep.
The person doing the marketing also be the person that did the
Exactly.
design.
Yep.
It
Yep.
sounds like a very small company. If you're
It
doing all
was.
those things, yeah.
It was like it. When I joined, I was the 11th person, and by the time it ran out of funding, we could not pursue that anymore. So you're like 21 people, right? But we ran out of funding.
Mm.
But we did not lose hope. We just like we went our separate ways, but on a very good note that we might work again in the future.
This was your first job.
Yeah, it was my first job.
Okay. And so that's an interesting thing. Were you hired by the company, or were you like friends with the owners, or was it a personal sort of situation or a job application kind of thing?
So it was like my final year project was with the company, right? So once I was
Okay.
done with my final year project, they asked me to come in. Not just me, my entire group, they asked us to join them. So me along with 3 other people, we joined them for 10 months.
So I think maybe one lesson that you would learn from listening to this is that internships are really important in school. Could you make those kind of?
Exactly. They do make a lot of difference, because, if you are fresh out of university and you don't have that kind of exposure in, working with a very complex team, very fast-paced startup, or just about any company, right? If you don't have that experience, you are going to, you would need some time to get used to that kind of working environment.
Now, tell us a little bit about your current position.
Okay, so currently I am leading a business operations unit, and again, it is a very fast-paced startup. It was incubated in Y Combinator in the Silicon Valley, right? In batch 17, I guess. Yeah. So what I do here is I lead a team of more than 80 people, and my role is not limited to customer success. A lot of product building, high level stuff, right? High level engineering stuff. I'm not doing the programming or the coding, but I'm just drawing out, okay, what do customers want? What tech do they need? What should we do in terms of building the product, in terms of ensuring that we meet the basic expectations of the customer. We are not building something which they want. We are building what they need. And then my role is also in the operations as well, business operations. So I am just looking at, okay, how do I make sure that we are spending effectively, right? We are like making a lot of money, right? And one of the things, like I have learned over time, is like it is very easy to raise $1 or $10 million, right? It is very easy to raise capital now. It is difficult to earn that in profit, right? But it is extremely, extremely, extremely challenging to spend that $1 million effectively, right? And that is where most of the companies, they fail, and they end up, they're just closing down the entire operations. And we see this a lot, right? So you have a lot of money in the bank, and then you start spending it on, like just hiring a lot of people, making bigger offices. And what happens is that your run rate and your capex and opex are just like all over the place, and then you end up losing the entire money, and there is no sustainable business model at all. And once, like for example, COVID hits, for example, global supply chain issues hit, and if you don't have that sustainable business model, then you end up losing your entire business unit, right? So this is one of my roles, to look at the opex and capex, and just understanding where to spend, how to spend, and when to spend. This is one of my roles. And then another. Yep.
What would you, I'm just again curious because of our audience,
Mhm.
what would you advise, a couple of things that are right off the top of your head
Mhm.
that you think businesses waste money on?
Hiring wrong people and building fancy offices which they do not need, and scaling out to areas where they shouldn't be, right? And keeping in mind the situation around the globe as well, because what is working in the US might not work in UK, and might not work in Pakistan, might not work in India, might not work in Malaysia. So if you're following the international fads, that is something like you need to figure out. You have to have, if you're working in the local market, you need to understand that market. If you're working in the US market, you need to understand that market, right? So understanding where you're operating is very, very essential. You can't just replicate one thing in another area.
What's the name of your current company? What do you make?
So we are a design house. So we make electronics, we do embedded stuff, we do enterprise grade software, and our entire services and products are based on our core technology, which is basic. It's called IoT core. It's Internet of Things, basically, right? So we make our products based on that technology. It could be smart homes, it could be dairy fed bed for cows, it could be, like just about anything you see around you in electronics or in embedded domain. For example, one of our products is called Automa. It controls your air conditioning. Any air conditioning in the world, if it has a remote, we can control it, right? So something like that, right? Enterprise software, embedded electronics. If you want 3D modeling or rendering, we can do that as well. Artificial intelligence, computer vision, and it is complete end-to-end product house. We have 3D printers in house. We have like laser cutters in house. Each and every microchip you can think of, we have it in house, right? So we do very, very rapid prototyping, right? So you tell us to build something, do the R&D, we can probably do it in a month if it is related to the embedded to our domain, which is Internet of Things. So that is what kind of stuff we do here.
What's your biggest product?
It is Cowler. It's a dairy fed bed for cows. Basically, it is a device which you just fit around a cow's neck, because a cow will not tell you if it is sick. A cow will not tell you when the cows have a unique social behavior, right? So there are dominant cows and there are non-dominant cows. So you need to look at those 27 unique cow behaviors in order to increase their yield. So just in US, it's a $33 billion milk industry, right? And if you lose one pregnancy, right, that is going to cost you a lot. It's in thousands of dollars, right? Because you miss one pregnancy, then you have to wait for the another heat cycle. And if you miss that, then you will have to wait for the another heat cycle, right? So the rumination, the eating behaviors, the medical behaviors. And imagine if you are in, Versailles, where there are 1.3 million cows. You have a huge human force to control all of that. You need to have some sort of technological solution which provides you all that information about a cow on a web-based platform, right? So imagine having 1,000 cows and having to go and check on each and every one of them to see which one is sick and which one is not, right? So
It does things like measure heart rate,
exactly,
temperature,
it is
location,
basically a like your dairy fed bed, like you have
an
watches,
Apple Watch.
Okay.
just like an Apple Watch for cows. Yeah, just like that. Yeah, it is a little bit more complex, but just for the audience, yeah, sure.
Right. Ken, didn't you spend some time as a child on a farm?
I was just going to say, yeah. So I grew up on a farm. We
Wow.
had We had about 12. We only had about 12 cattle. We had horses as well, but we
Mhm.
had one bull and, 7 or 8 heifers,
Mhm.
and we had to go out and find them.
Yep.
If they didn't come in when we rang the bell to feed them,
Mhm.
and they didn't come running in, we had to go walk that field to go find them. And sometimes they were fine, sometimes they weren't fine. Sometimes
Yep.
they were sick. My dad was a veterinarian, so he could give them care at the moment,
Mhm.
but that was very unique to us. So we would have had to have, like, obviously done a lot to get to first of all find that cow in the middle of the night,
Mhm.
in the morning, during the winter, so on and so forth. So I love this idea of the cowler.
Yeah. So this was our idea when we got incubated in the Y Combinator, and we raised about $2.2 million on this product. And we completed this product in about 2.5 years. And there are clinical trials for it. So the first one happened, we passed. The second one happened, we passed. The third one came, and the COVID came. So now there's a huge backlog in California, and we are waiting for our turn to get this test passed. But we are quite sure it can easily get passed. So in the meantime, what we did is either we would burn the money we raised, or we should like come up with a new solution to keep that bank balance going up and up and up. So that is why we launched this new division where we do end-to-end product services. We're using the same technology, right? The software and hardware technology is the same, but it can be used in multiple other applications as well. So this is like one of my advice to a lot of startup founders out there, that whatever you're building, if it's tech related, always focus on the technology first, right? If you have a mature technology, you can build applications around it, right? It could be like literally anything around that core technology. Same like Apple has done the same, SpaceX has done the same, Tesla has done the same, right? So all these big unicorn startups, you look at them, they have always perfected their technology first and then build the applications around them, build the ecosystem around that, right? So yeah.
Where do you manufacture? Do you manufacture in-house, or do you
Oh yeah.
building of the product outsourced, or?
So what we do is like we do the prototyping in-house, but for the large scale manufacturing, we just get it done from China or from the US. But that makes more financial sense, right? Because we do not have the parts manufacturing in Pakistan. So that adds a lot of cost and a lot of, supply chain challenges. But so what we do is for mass manufacturing, we just go to China or US.
Ever think about ways that the government could help keep somebody like you in the country manufacturing?
Yeah, we would love that, but like we are still in a development phase where Pakistan is understanding, okay, software businesses can boom very well, but what about the hardware startups, right? What about the hardware companies? And to enable us, they would need, a lot of big factories, a lot of foreign collaborations, and that is going to take some time, but eventually it will get in, right? It is not happening right now, but the ecosystem is moving, and people have started to like work in this domain as well. So once you have demand, then obviously there will be a reaction, maybe not today but in the future as well, right? So I'm quite hopeful that it will take us like about 10-20 years to before we can start the large scale manufacturing in Pakistan. Like we can do little manufacturing. For example, we can have few machines in Pakistan and do that ourselves, but still there is a big challenge when it comes to importing electronics in Pakistan, because you have to go through a very hefty process. So what people end up doing is they just go to uh, like in Central Europe, or they just go to Hong Kong, or they go to Dubai export free zone and do their manufacturing there, because it's just that easy, that much easier to import things.
Right. Interesting. What are you now? About 25, would you say?
Yeah.
So you're still young. You may see a lot of these changes over the course of your business life.
Yep. That is why I'm hopeful. Like I'm young. If I'm making a difference, maybe I can make enough difference for, the government might come in and, help us. And there are a lot of young entrepreneurs in Pakistan, especially when you have like 68% of your population young and under the age of 25 and 30, then, there is a huge chance that you will see a turnaround in few years.
How many total employees does your company have now?
We have 86 employees and we are ramping up right now to about 150.
And is there an office or a number of offices, or do most people work from home? Like, what's the physical spatial situation?
So we have only one person who is working from home, and other than that, we have one office in we have two offices in Islamabad, and we're building the third one in Islamabad as well.
Did I tell
So
Susi alumni to apply for a job with you?
well, I have asked a few, but our degree programs are very, very different, and our interests are different.
Right,
So,
right.
right. I did invite one UGrad alumni, right, for the interview. He came in and he could not, unfortunately, he could not pass the interview. But I did look into the Pakistan US alumni network, and I always look into the network first. And whenever I start my search for hiring, I do look into the networks as well.
Back to us sharing your email address with people of interest, would you? Right, in the
Yep.
current group. Because there are a couple of engineering students, and they maybe it might be a field. You never know. It's hard to find good
You
people.
never know. True. It is very, very challenging because there's like I said, 68% young people, and then you have literally thousands of graduates coming out of universities every session, and sometimes it's just spring, and in fall it is huge influx, right? But finding the right candidates, that is a big challenge, right? That is like a huge challenge, and especially if your clients are based in North America, then you would need somebody who is very, very good at engineering or whatever their job is. Then they should also be good at communicating as well. They should also be good at documenting as well. The documentation, the technical, the verbal communication. So all of these things like are very, very essential if you have foreign customers, right? And this gets very challenging because we are not at that stage in Pakistan yet where the masses are getting that kind of exposure in terms of education, right? There's a very small group, I would say less than 5 or 10% people who do get that kind of exposure. So it is unfortunate, but at the same time, I'm quite hopeful because, COVID has helped us a lot, right? Why do I say that? Because it has enabled working from home, and a lot of people have been working from home for different, for multiple countries, for multiple companies, and that foreign exposure, which has enabled a lot of our young people to get that exposure that they were not getting inside their university. So just by working from home, they got that exposure. They now know, okay, how do the other countries operate, how do other companies, foreign companies operate, right? So I think COVID has been a very good blessing to countries like Pakistan, and again, I'm very hopeful that in coming years there will be a lot of grooming, a lot of just nation building, a lot of people building up their characters, a lot of people building up their professional ethics, and things related to that.
Well, I have one more question. Ken might have a few questions as well. But again, for our audience, you sort of already alluded to it some. But when you say it's hard to find good people, what are the 2 or 3 things you think people fall down on? Like, what's the skill set they're missing? And I know it would depend on the job, of course, but in general, when you guys sit around and talk about this last batch of interviews, and you start joking and talking about people, what are the things that are missing from their lives or their abilities or their resumes?
Their abilities, right? So the generic aura in Pakistan is like you just do 9 to 5, you do your duty, and then you go home. But now there's a whole new culture of entrepreneurship, of just startups popping up from everywhere. And with entrepreneurship, you need to accept that it is not going to be 9 to 6. It is not going to be banking hours at all, right? You need to be prepared to work literally and virtually from anywhere and at any time, right? And that is something which is missing in a lot of candidates, because they just think, okay, we'll just go into our banking hours and like do that and come back home and just relax, right? So that is one of the biggest challenges, because people are not willing to put in that much effort. The masses I'm talking, but there are genuinely few people, and that those are the only few people you need. In startups, you do not need a lot of people. For example, WhatsApp was built by less than 5 people. Airbnb was built by less than 5 people. what else, like the drive was the Dropbox, right? The Dropbox was built by 3 people, right? So a lot of these big startups, the big unicorn startups, they were built by very few people, right? Very concentrated group. So you don't need a lot of people, right? So you just need those few crazy ones who can just sort of come in and get the job done. But once you start to scale up from those 10 people to 100 people, that is when the challenge comes in, because now you have to look at the masses as well. Now you have to add those from those masses as well. And how do you train them? How do you make sure you do not skip out on a candidate who was more deserving than the one sitting in your office right now?
Right.
Right. So those are some of the challenges that you do face, and your processes do break down. And like you have to just keep yourself up to date. And another there's a difference in skill set, right? There's a difference in what is taught at your school and what is happening in the real world. So that is one of the major challenges, because for let's say, I would say, if you look at the software people, or the software, let's just look at the software people, right? So the demand is for, let's say, a JavaScript, right? This is a programming language. It is very famous in the world, but in your university or in your school, you are being taught another language which is like 10 years older, right? So that creates a huge gap. Then you have to take the candidates who have this ability, who have just a higher IQ, just that craze for learning. You have to take them, then you have to train them for a certain while before they are able to go on to live projects, right? So that creates a very challenging situation, that people are already spending 4 years of their life, a lot of resources, just a lot of their time. I would say money is irrespective of that, right? But they come in and then they have to do it all over again, and this time with a very few time on their hands, right? So that is a huge gap when it comes to what is happening in the academia, what is happening in the industry. So keeping up with the technology trends around the globe is very essential for technological startups, especially in developing countries, because their customers are based in US or North America or UK or Australia. Those countries are like, like every day or every month you have a new technology coming in. And then here in the developing countries, you have a curriculum which is like 10 years or 20 years older, right? So that is one of the gaps we do address, and that is one of the challenges we face, but we do come around it somehow. I don't know how, but we do come around it.
That's really interesting. I feel like sometimes when I hire people for the Civic Initiative, it's similar. You need a core group of people that are willing to work constantly and have a broad set of skills.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to hire more people, and you hope that they improve during the job.
Yep.
And do you have any questions?
Yeah, I wanted to go back, Mike, to how Dinesh answered your question about, because he answered it so easily and so quickly. The question was, what do businesses waste their money on? And Dinesh didn't spend more than a half a second thinking about it. He just rattled off these multiple things. And it impressed upon me how, I'm going to guess that Dinesh and maybe the people he worked with, this is not their first time starting a business. They maybe have started and frankly failed in the past. And
Yes.
one of the skills that you were just talking about that you didn't mention was persistence.
Yeah.
And to not give up. And I'm finding that with our current group, as I talk to them and learn more about what they want to do, about how they all should really have that same instinct, this sort of persistent instinct of learning, seeing a problem, like you say, as just a challenge, Dinesh, or seeing a failure as an opportunity to learn. So I just wanted to just make that not really a question there, more of just a statement of, I think there's a lot of learning going on, a lot of disappointment, and probably some sadness at times, but also moving forward.
Yeah, it's more like, if you do make a mistake, a wise person would not repeat it the second time, right? They would learn from it, and they would just come back with a better solution, and they would not repeat their mistakes. That is what a good person, a brilliant person might do. And this is one of the challenges that companies do face. They linger on to people who keep on repeating the same mistakes, they keep giving them chances. it is very empathetic and very sympathetic to give people chances. But if somebody is just failing at and not listening to you and just not very good at doing their job, then it is better for them if you let them go, right? So they can just go on, move on, do things they can do better, right? And this is like what I fundamentally believe, and I have seen this over the past year, right? If you do let go of people who could not keep up and who are making the same mistakes over and over again, right? They stop you from going the a step ahead, right? So you have to cut them loose, and then you need to guide them. Okay, so like, this is where you should be, right? This is not the place where you should be. This is the place where you should be, right? So you're not just kicking them out, you're actually also giving them a second chance. Okay, go here, work there. This is the kind of work you can do very easily. So it does not create a mental effect on them. It does not hurt their feelings. It does not create that depressive feeling in them, right? So it is kind of like balancing things, right? So you have to you respect the talent, because in the same company you might be seeing people who are doing their job in 2 hours, and then there are people who are taking 20 hours, right? So you have to respect the talent. Maybe the 2 hour person is like skipping things and the 20-hour person is doing it very perfectly, but it is the other way around as well, right? There are some brilliant people who are not just 1x faster or 10x faster, they're 100x faster, right? And then you also have to look at people who are 10x right now, but they have the potential to go to 100x, but with few months of training or a few weeks of training or few years of training, right? So organizational, based on operational point of view, there are a lot of variables which you have to look at. If somebody is like 1x and 6 months into the job they're still 1x, then you have to let them go. If they're not progressing, you have to let them go, because they might not be cut out for the job, especially if you are in a very fast paced startup, right? When once you are like established startup and you become a corporation, you can like, okay, that's fine, we have a lot of money coming in, the revenue is stable, we have product in the market, then you can like go with that sort of person. But if you are going like in an exponential direction, then you cannot have somebody who is not growing with you, because all boats must rise together. It could not be like 10 people are here and one person is like dragging along. It creates pressure not on these people but on the person who is down here. So that person starts to get depressed and is just like, okay, what am I even doing here? So I think this answers one of your other questions, I guess.
Yeah, that's very interesting. This whole talk has been fascinating to me. I really think that the people that listen to it are going to benefit from it.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate the time. It was very good, and it's great to hear from you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Wonderful to hear what you've been up to since you came back from your trip, the challenges that you initially met, but also what you've been up to ever since. It's great to see you again.
Thank you.
And we appreciate
Tell all of our mutual friends we said hi.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Hi to them as well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Mike.